Hello and welcome to the LSAT Demon Daily. My name is Erik Johansson. I'm a team member with the LSAT Demon. With me today is Kevin Kissinger, who's also an LSAT Demon team member. He, like myself, also started as an LSAT Demon student back in the day.
Yeah, I'm a refugee from a few other places, but I've been with the Demon for a while. I started TAing for Ben's class and TAing for some other teachers and kind of doing miscellaneous work, but now I'm a teacher and applying to law school, so super fun.
Fantastic. Well, you're here because you're going to share with us your LSAT success story. You, like many others, had a long road to getting a kick-ass score in the 170s and wanted to share your story. So, yeah, give us a brief rundown of what the history of your test-taking experience was, where you started, and where it is that you ended up.
Yeah, so I started studying for the LSAT in, the spring of 2019, which would have been my junior year of college. And I thought, okay, my GPA is kind of setting in. I can kind of focus on the LSAT now. So I tried to do it as inexpensively as possible, which was a mistake in hindsight. So, I studied with these free resources I found on YouTube and bought some LSAT. They I don't know if they still sell these, but they're like 10 LSAT prep or LSAT test prep books. And worked through those. I was my diagnostic was a 153, which I thought that's an okay place to start.
Yeah, very good place to start.
And then I took some tests. I started scoring the low 160s, and at the time, I was really just interested in staying in my state. Didn't really have any ambitions outside of that, and so I thought low 160s. That's going to be great. That's a good score. I'm going to take the September test. September 2019 was the first time they used these little iPad things. And it was one of the last in-person tests before COVID.
Yeah, I was going to say, you started studying in 2019. If you tested that year, you would have gone in person.
Yeah. And, in some ways that makes me a dinosaur compared to all the other people taking the LSAT nowadays, because it's just so streamlined and efficient online. But I'd say the online version is better because you're not walking into a school or a building with 30 or 40 other anxious people trying to do their best on the score.
Oh man, I am so happy I never had to deal with that.
Yeah.
My entire LSAT history has been online, and I'm really glad.
Yeah. I'm glad too. I only had to do that once. And it's like you bring in a plastic bag with, got to make sure you got everything in the bag and, lock your car and then put that in the bag and make sure that's all secure. And then you give it to some stranger you've never met. Yeah. So, but yeah, I took it in September 2019. When I took the test, from the get-go, I guess I should back up a little bit. I was really good at logic games. I've always been good at logic games. Reading comprehension is the one I struggled with the most. So when I got to the September test and I get to the logic games, I have the hardest logic game I've ever seen in my life. And that should be the first indicator that, oh, Kevin, you shouldn't have taken the test. You haven't done all the games. You haven't seen all the games. You haven't, done everything. So I just kind of shut down. I got my score back, 153. And I was like, have I learned nothing? I'm back to square one. And so I decided, I'm going to spend the rest of the year solidifying my GPA. It was already good. It's already at a good spot, but I want to make sure it's really solid. So I did that for the rest of the year. And then I started studying again in that next spring. And COVID actually started to make it a little bit easier to start studying.
Because everything had gone online?
Yeah, everything shut down. The only thing I had to do my senior year during the spring was my senior thesis for the honors college. So that's all I worked on. And then I took some LSAT courses that the university offered, which is better than the free stuff I was using, but it's still not that great. To be
sure.
But and then I started studying with people on Reddit, and this is where I got my first introduction to the LSAT Demon. We used a different prep company, but we also drilled with the Demon. And we had one person in our little study group that had a Demon account, and we would just get on a Zoom call and, just drill together. And it was super great.
Was this the other prep company that was advocating the use of Demon drilling, or was it just one of your group members who had a Demon drilling and you would do it together?
Yeah, we took tests and used, I'll say, analytics maybe that I might have revealed too much of which company we were using, but we used that as our main side of operation, I guess, for
Uh-huh.
studying for the LSAT. And then we had one person in our group who had the demon, and we would drill on occasion. We would just, he would pull up, share his screen, and the three or four of us that were together would just drill together. And it's a great method,
Huh. Yeah.
but I did get some resources from the demon for free. It was good advertising, I guess, by my friend who we were studying with.
Sure.
But over the summer we worked on, we took tests, we worked together, we drilled, we did all this stuff together. And by the end of August, I was scoring in the high 160s, but I hadn't hit 170 yet. But I thought, you know what? I'm still thinking about these schools in my state. So let's go ahead and take the test. I take the October LSAT in 2020. I score 168. Great. That's what I'm looking for. Now, this is still before I haven't really drinking or taken a sip of the demon Kool-Aid yet.
Sure.
So I apply in the beginning of November after I get my October score with 168. And I apply, with the score, I suddenly have a bit more ambition. So I apply all over the place, top 14, all over the country sort of thing. And that's when I'd say maybe a month later, schools stopped admitting people. There's just like everything grinded to a halt because they realized, oh my gosh, the LSAT or the amount of people applying this year to law school has increased by 100%, 200%, just an insane amount of
Right.
students are applying.
Yeah, there was a
And
huge
so,
surge in applications in 2020 after COVID.
yeah,
Yep.
and it was brutal. It really messed with my mental health. And I wish
Mm.
I hadn't applied, actually. if
Yeah,
I could
as
go back.
someone who is sitting through application cycle right now, just waiting to hear back, it's nerve-wracking, and it's
Yeah,
definitely, yeah, waiting to hear back from places it's tough. And I
yeah.
can imagine if in a different year where the application volume was way up and you have a feeling that you're just not going to hear back, that'd be brutal.
If this cycle if you're applying this cycle, and to me it feels like an 8 out of 10 or something. It's difficult. You're waiting a lot. I crank that up to like a 12 out of 10. This 2020.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe that. But I went through the whole cycle. I didn't like any of my offers, except I did get a full ride at a couple schools. And so from the Demons perspective, I won the game. 100% I won the game, which is great. That was a confidence booster for me.
Yeah.
But I thought I could do better. And so I said no. I decided to decline the offer. Maybe I got too greedy, but I thought, I won the game once. I'm confident I can win the game with a better score in the future. So that's when I started to look into the Demon. That summer of 20, I guess it's 2021. I jumped into the Demon. I studied with them for a few months as a student. I'm scoring in the 170s. I've never done that before. Scoring in like mid 170s. And I'm feeling confident. So I decided to take the August exam. And I remember in class, because one of my highest score I ever got was 179. I remember asking Nathan, saying, "Hey, should I take another practice test? Because I feel this was like a couple weeks before the August exam." And I was like, "I've never scored this high. I'm so excited." And he said, "No, are you dumb? Why would you take another test?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah." So I didn't take another test, and I still think that was the right call. But when I got my score back from the August test, I got a 165, and I thought,
Mm.
"What the heck happened?" I felt really good taking the test that day. And so, I thought, what, I just had a bad day. I'm going to take it again. I got to October, took the test, feeling good again. I got a 168. I thought, what the heck? This is my fourth test. I thought, I certainly I got it now. I'm scoring the 170s. I don't dip below 170, and I got that same score. So I thought, what? I just messed up again. So I'm going to take a little bit more time. And I decided to take the test again in January. And this is when I just went for a routine doctor's visit. And my doctor and I had a really strong conversation about anxiety.
Mm.
And we, I've been through a lot of testing. I applied, I went through all that stuff. And he basically discovered and told me point blank, you have anxiety. You went through a lot and you need to recognize that. And so during this time, we talked about how to improve mental health wise. I started doing meditation, other exercises basically to improve that mental health, took medication, stuff like that. He said, you need to take a chill pill, step back, stop focusing, maybe stop being on Reddit every day, looking at how people are doing and comparing yourself to people. That's a
Big
big
plus one to that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a big problem. And so I had some really vulnerable and truthful conversations about what I was getting into and what I was doing. And at that point, I was thinking, okay, this is a make or break moment for me. Do I really want to go into a really stressful career, or do I want to try to get not only improve myself LSAT wise, or as make myself a stronger candidate, but improve myself as a person? And so I told myself that I was going to invest in myself and improve myself because I still wanted to be a lawyer and practice and stuff. So I decided to get accommodations. I thought, you know what? I've been through the test a lot. I know I can score well without accommodations. I've done that before. But if my mental health is so important to me and my doctor's telling me, hey, you need to be really careful, then I think this is a good idea. So I spoke with my doctor about it. He said, this is a good idea. We went through it. I got accommodations for the January test. And I ended up scoring a 169. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. I'm so close to 170. I'm so close. At this point, I've run out of my attempts. I got 5 attempts. I thought, there's how I'm missing it by this much. I just want to prove to myself that I can score 170 on the official test, not to these schools or anything like that. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? That was my 5th test. I'm done. But during my 5th test, during one of the sections, this is going to sound really dumb, but I think it's really funny looking at it, reflecting on it. Earlier, we got an Amazon Echo, like, I don't know, a few months earlier. And my mom, what she did, she programmed it. So on Fridays at 5:00, it would just go, it's the weekend, and start playing celebration songs. And you're like, oh, this is fun. That's cool. So I totally forgot about the Echo. It only pipes up once a week, really, with that celebration thing. And during the middle of my 3rd section, I suddenly hear, it's the weekend. Let's celebrate. And it starts singing. And I'm like, oh, shit. I am so screwed, And so I panic. I message my proctor. I say, is my test going to be terminated, sort of thing? And he goes, well, I'm not sure. We'll see. And I was like, that's helpful, And so all this anxiety.
That was so in the middle of your test, like
in the
with
middle
the
of my
clock running, you messaged your proctor to ask if the Amazon Echo going off was going to ruin your test.
It really, let's say I was a conductor on a train. Those train tracks, one goes left, one goes straight. I just veered left really fast, as fast as you could.
Sure. Yeah. He just got derailed.
And I thought, I'm done. This is my last attempt. What am I going to do? I started spiraling. I think of that stuff. I still scored well, but I thought, man, I really had a missed opportunity. And one of the best things I did is I just told LSAC what happened. I said, hey, this happened to my test. Is my test going to be terminated? And they said, no. It was fine. During the test when I had to yell Alexa stop or whatever a couple times, that's the only thing they heard, apparently.
Yeah.
They didn't hear the actual Alexa.
Yeah.
And then I see online that some people got another attempt because they had testing issues one day. And I thought, I know I can do better. I'll give it another try. I've already done it 5 times. What's the 6th one going to do? It's no different, really. And you can take it 7 times in your lifetime. So it's not like, it's a special thing, whatever. It was just, you got to work around 5 times in 5 years, which I had done already. So I decided, what, next testing cycle, which pops up in June, I'm just going to message LSAC, send them an official application or whatever materials they need in order to take the test one more time. So I did that and I got approved. They said, yeah, we realized this was a stressful situation for you, so we're going to let you take it one more time. And so I scheduled for the September LSAT. I feel like I did really well, smashed it. Although at the back of my mind, it's like, you felt this way before. Don't get all excited. And I wake up on score release day and I get a 174 and I just about jump 15 feet in the air. Not humanly possible, but I was so excited. I felt so validated. I was like, yes, all this hard work. It's been 3 years since I started studying for the LSAT, and I finally got my goal score. I prove to myself that I could do it. Number one, prove to myself that I can improve myself, physically, mentally, whatever, to be a better, healthier person.
Hmm.
And the three, it proved to myself and maybe to my close friends and family that don't give up is such a really strong mantra. Already this cycle, I have acceptances at places I dreamed about 2 years ago when I applied the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. It worked out really well.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing that story, Kevin. There's so much to take away from that. I think the key thing, like you said, is just the perseverance to keep going. I mean, your LSAT journey lasted, you said 3 years. You went from a 153 diagnostic to a 174. That's a 21 point improvement.
Yeah.
And plenty of times along the way where you could have just said good enough, including your first application cycle where you got some full ride offers, but you got greedy and knew that you had better in you.
Yeah.
And already it seems like that's paying off. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like you say, I could have taken a different path, totally different path. And it might have worked out. It might have been great. But like you said, I just didn't feel satisfied. I wanted to see how far I could go. So
For sure. A big thing I take away from your story is the importance of just asking if there's something that you think you might need to get a better score or that might be possible for you, whether it's having that conversation with your doctor about anxiety and accommodations and then taking that onto LSAC, or asking LSAC if it's possible to get a sixth attempt and just discussing what happened on your previous attempt. You're never going to know the answer to that question unless you just ask the question, and the worst that they can say is no, right? I mean, you could have just called it in and said, well, that was 5 attempts, 169 is my score, but
yeah.
you decided to just go ahead and ask and it worked out, right?
Yeah. And that's exactly right. It's you don't know what's going to happen unless you try. And so, and you can see that on all 6 of my attempts, I didn't know what was going to happen until I took the test. So it's just, if you think you can do it, I'd say go for it. You got to advocate for yourself. If you can advocate for yourself, then I think you're already on your way to being a good advocate for others anyway.
Absolutely. You are now a LSAT demon teacher. You have
Yeah.
Tell me about the class that you teach.
Yeah. Shameless plug here. My class is called Guilty or Not Guilty. Over time, logical reasoning became my favorite section because it's like little mini puzzle games. For some reason, I imagined like picking up the newspaper and reading this really terrible argument and treating it like a word puzzle and just, kicking ass and destroying it and saying, oh,
Totally.
here's the answer. This is why it's wrong. So that's kind of how I treat my classes. I try to get people to get into that mindset, where I want you to look at the argument and say, hey, this argument's awful. It's guilty of being awful. And you're going to tell me why it's guilty. We got to provide, you know, this theme is related off of my job as a court clerk. I work in the court system. And so I want you to provide the statute or, whatever the rules are. So if it's like a necessary assumption question, what are we looking for in a necessary assumption? Provide that basis to explain why it's guilty or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So it's a little fun theme. Get people to
Nice.
have a little bit more fun with the LSAT. But on the other side of the coin, if it's not guilty, like a fact pattern or something, then I want you to tell me why it's not guilty. So I try to do that in each of my classes because that's the mindset you want when you go into the test. If you can do
Mm-hmm.
that, then you're going to destroy LR and even reading comprehension is very similar. So
Yeah. And that's all analysis and engagement that occurs before you even look at the questions.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. You're not looking at the answer choices to see if this argument's guilty or whatever. You want to look at it and be like, this guy, let's see. Oh, he's really dumb. Why the heck did you say that? Or
Yep,
this conclusion is not supported by the premises. Something like that.
for
So,
sure. I'm interested if you've had a similar experience for myself. My final official test attempt was over a year ago at this point, and I've been teaching for some of that time for a few months. And I have found that I continue to learn the LSAT and I think continue to improve at the LSAT, even though I haven't taken it officially in over a year and I'm a teacher still. Do you find that teaching you're still improving and learning?
Oh yeah, 100%. Even, I've only been teaching for a few months, but even in that time, students come up with these things that I never would have even thought of when going over the question. And so it's like, oh wow, that's a different perspective. Interesting. And then you dive into the particulars on that and dissect why this person might have thought this way. That's fascinating. Maybe I should have been like a philosophy or like sociology person and analyze people, how people think. But anyway, it's just like there's so many different ways to attack this test that everyone could be a lifelong learner with that sort of thing.
And I hopefully people find that encouraging or inspiring, that even us who are teaching the darn test are still improving and still learning it. And also that, for anyone intimidated by the idea of some point scoring in the 170s, it took, I think, pretty much all of us who are with the demon multiple attempts to get our best scores.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I don't know of anybody who I'm currently teaching alongside who knocked it out of the park their first time.
Yeah,
And several of us who took it 5 times. So hopefully that's encouraging to people. Like, if you don't nail it on your first test attempt, well, neither did we.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, this has been really a pleasure chatting with you and hearing your story. Thanks for sharing it. Is there any final words of advice that you would want to share, or summing up the biggest lessons that you took away from your LSAT journey to share with our listeners?
I think it comes down to those things I was saying earlier. Be an advocate for yourself. Don't give up. And why not? Give it a shot. So if students want to talk to me about this, you can come to my class, or you can just, I guess we can share our emails here, can't we?
Feel free.
Yeah. Yeah. You can shoot me an email at kevin@lsatdemon.com.
Thanks, Kevin. If you've got Kevin's info, if you want to reach out to him, if you want to write into the show with any LSAT or law school admissions news, you can do so at daily@lsatdemon.com. And thanks for listening.